All right. Peace and blessings, everyone. Peace and blessings. Welcome to the Futures Black Podcast. The Futures Black Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Nasir Gifted, and we have an exciting one for you tonight. We have an exciting one for you tonight. This is episode 12, Afrofutures Unveiled. Unveiled. And today we're going to embark upon a journey through time and technology as Afrofutures are unveiled, explore the timeless possibilities of Afrofuturism, envisioning a future where innovation and culture intertwine. And today, we also have a special guest. We're going to bring him up shortly with regards to this. But this is actually when we get into it, this is actually episode 12, which is actually the end of season one. So we are episode 12. We just did 12 episodes of season one. So we want to conclude the first season by speculating the future of Afrofuturism and its potential impact on animation, gaming, and discuss emerging technologies and trends. So we're going to touch on all of those things tonight, man. And who better to be able to touch upon these things than the brother that I'm going to bring up in a few seconds. But let us know where you're tuning in from. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the support. But as always, we need you to don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the Futures Black podcast. So thank you all for tuning in, man. We are definitely appreciative. We love the feedback that we've been getting over the last couple of years. But without further ado, I want to welcome up our individual to this phenomenal individual to the stage. His name is William Jones. He is the founder of Afrofuturism Network. He is a good friend of mine, I would like to say, a historian, an educator, and self-prescribed comic book geek. William Jones is the author of The Ex-Con, The Voodoo Priest, The Goddess, and The African King, which is an analysis of the Black comic book heroes. He frequently speaks on history of Black people in America, the image of Black in various forms of media, pop culture, on various college campuses, at conferences, both nationally and abroad. Afrofuturism Network seeks the support of the ever-growing community of Black writers, artists, and thinkers in the realm of sci-fi, fantasy, comic books, and film. And Afrofuturism Network analyzes the contributions and the portrayal of Black characters in these mediums. Afrofuturism Network examines the roles and place of Black people in the past, present, and future, and serves as a hub for Black creativity uh, and thought. William is also the creator and host of Into the Afroverse, a weekly radio show out of the DC area, WOL 1450 AM and 95.9 FM. So without further ado, I want to give a big hold on before I even do that. I gotta cue the good brother up. Let's give a big Wakanda welcome to my man, the good brother, William Jones. William Jones, y'all. Give it up for the good brother. Give it up for the good brother. And I always do this, and then here we go. Here we go. Hey, William.
Hey, what's going on, man? You can hear me?
Brother. Welcome to the stage, man. Hey, welcome, brother. How you
Thank
doing?
you. I'm doing well, man. You can hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you great. Man.
Yo, thanks for the welcome. I wasn't expecting the music. Just so happens I got the background, so it's perfect, man. It's perfect.
Yeah, man. We talk about Afrofuturism, man, and just for the mainstream media, when we talk about Afrofuturism, it always is easily termed into what people think of when we think of Wakanda.
Right.
Our potential future if we weren't colonized, if we weren't divided as a community and families and everything. So when we do think of Afrofuturism, we also kind of tie in Wakanda, with regards to that as well. So hey man, thank you. Welcome. I know you've been doing some phenomenal things, man. You've been on panels with me, when
Yes,
we talk
sir.
about space STEM and Afrofuturism, at New York Comic Con and a ton of other things. But I know you got a ton of projects that you're working on. But let us know who you are, where you from, and tell us about this Afrofuturism Network that you founded, please.
Excellent. First of all, once again, thank you, brother, for having me on. And I feel kind of special. I'm coming on, as you're closing it out. So I don't know if the pressure's on or what, but thank you so much for having me.
Hey man,
Yeah.
I told you I saved a nice spot for you, so that's where
Yes, you did.
we coming in at, man.
Yes, you did. Just a little bit about myself. Once again, you did a great job of the introduction. Thank you. But yeah, man, I various things. I'm a historian by birth, I like to say, because it's always been part of me. It was always part of the family conversations. And it's just something that I took to and then turned it into a profession. And with that, I've always had a love of comic books, science fiction, fantasy, and so forth. And I've always sought out Black people's space in those spaces. And when I found out later on in life that there was a name for this, Afrofuturism, I was like, oh man, I'm already an Afrofuturist. Now there's a name for it. And with that, that led me to create the Afrofuturism Network. And I see you, Blue Lotus. Thank you so much. When I created the Afrofuturism Network, the idea was not only to get out the ideas of Afrofuturism, but also to bring attention to people like yourself that are putting in the work, that are doing good work to promote Afrofuturism and have this discussion about Black people in the future. Because I think all too often that's not something we're having. We talk a lot about the history as well we should. We talk about the present as well we should. But many times we leave out the future. And by the future, I'm not talking about, next year or even 2 years from now. I'm talking about 50, 100, 200, 250 years from now. Those time and spaces where we won't be here. Those are the conversations that I want to have. And the Afrofuturism Network really has been quite successful. Thanks for people that are listening and so forth. They really helped to make it a success. And as you mentioned, I've managed to write a book that talks about Black comic book characters. And with the Afrofuturism Network, we've held a comic book convention, which you were a part of, as well as we've done a virtual convention during COVID when we didn't have a choice, teamed up with Mr. Duke Productions to produce GrioCon. And hopefully we'll be able to bring that back to the people live. And also with Afrofuturism Network, I host talks. Once again, you've been out there in Washington, D.C. at this restaurant called Bronze, which is actually an Afrofuturistic restaurant in Washington, D.C. And we'll talk a little bit about that later because I want to promote an event that I have there. And the radio show that you mentioned, Into the Afroverse, which airs on WOL 1450 AM locally here in Washington, D.C., also 95.9 FM. And yeah, man, just a whole bunch of things. I love lecturing and discussing these topics, past, present, future Black folks. And like I said, just looking forward to the rest of 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, man, that's super powerful. That's super powerful. So, I mean, you're doing a lot of things in this space, and I mean, one of the things that kind of linked us was our synergy around, like what this future looks like, right? So just for the public and for those who, because like what we do a lot of the times is we try to educate the audience, like what is your perspective of what Afrofuturism is? I know you talked about the future and everything,
Right.
and we talk about the lens, but what is that in, like when we talk about impact, right? How does impact play a part in what Afrofuturism is? And then we're going to actually get into a couple of other little things, with regards to that.
Well, for me, Afrofuturism is the past, present, and future all happening at the same time. So if we really want to talk about what Afrofuturism is and we want to look forward to where Black folk are headed, we got to look at where we are, and we also have to look at where we came from. And by looking at it from those three angles, it gives us a good idea of what Afrofuturism is all about. Because all of these things are happening simultaneously, as I'm sure you're aware, and I'm sure you talked about on this program. And basically with Afrofuturism, I don't want people to focus solely on entertainment. As we talked about, we opened with Wakanda, Black Panther really started that conversation, but it's a bigger conversation. It's a bigger school of thought where we're looking at the lives of Black folk literally in the future. where are we going to be 100, 200 years from now, as I mentioned earlier. So there's that entertainment aspect, there's that artistic aspect, which needs to be studied and talked about. But there's also that real world application in terms of where we headed intellectually, socially, economically, politically, and also in terms of the military, in terms of, if it should come down to it, can we defend ourselves? Can we protect ourselves in our community? So I think we need to have a conversation about Black people's future in all of those realms.
Oh no, yeah, that's definitely super powerful. I mean, and that's kind of like what we want to always be able to shed light on. Because when we talk about the social and political ills that affect the Black community and everything, like when we talk about the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 50 years, with the job markets, we get into we've talked about AI, we talked about the gaming platforms, we talked about a number of things. And one reason that we definitely want to do that, of course, is to educate our community, but also be able to set up legacy, right? To set up the next generation. And one of the things that I think about was how Rockefeller, we talk about what is it, John D. Rockefeller, how he set up his wealth. And now 7, 8 generations later, he has what we call generational wealth, where his family don't really have to do anything, but they have a mechanism in place that is setting them up for a lifetime. And as a Black community, I see, Afrofuturism kind of speaking to that vein as well of, like where are we going to be in the next 20, 30, even 100 years? And then how do we set ourselves up? How do we put these systems in place to be able to address those things? Well, without further ado, I definitely want to introduce our co-host, Delonte J. Bass. My partner in crime here. Will. We got somebody else. We got Nevio. Nevio tuning in. Where you tuning in from, Nev? Thank you for doing that. Thank you for tuning in. And then, hey man, Blue Lotus, man, excellent. Past, present, and future at the same time, man. Thank you for tuning in. Once again, you are tuned into the Futures Black Podcast, the Futures Black Podcast. If you got questions, and if you got questions, you got comments, anything, please, make sure that you tap in, don't tap out. We are here each and every week, every Thursday. Hold on, I got a little clip for that. Yeah, we are every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, I mean, I had the honor and privilege to be on your radio show. So I know you have a radio show out there in the DC area, man. How did that come about? And, like what has been the feedback that you've been getting, since you've been doing this on these particular platforms and stuff?
Wow. The radio show is interesting. I've always had this thing where if I get an inclination to do something, I just go ahead and do it. And one day, I just decided, man, I want to have a radio show. That was not something that I set out to do. It just kind of came to me. And I had a connection, brother by the name of James Cunningham. And he was like, man, why don't you give him a call? WOL, see what's going on and so forth. And I reached out, and it took a long time. I would write them constantly about having a radio show. And one of the hosts on the radio show that I communicated with, Mr. Carl Nelson, who actually has a show that comes on right before me, I talked with him, and he gave me some insights and so forth as far as WOL goes. And I just kept doing it. And one day they finally reached back and said, okay, you want to do this radio show? Do you have experience in radio? And I was like, sure, no. But I told them that I did, and they said, well, let's get this thing going. And I said, okay, well, this would have been maybe, let's say, in May, right? I said, I'm ready to, I'll be ready. And he said, well, you're going to be ready by? I said, I'll be ready by the summer. They said, no, we need you ready in 2 weeks. So I was like, are you kidding me? So what happened was I have another good friend I've worked with many times often, Mr. Chadwick Smith of Mr. Duke Productions. He does a lot of production work, and he's also a director, actor, just a talented brother. And he was my first guest. And I remember when I was working my job, I was actually recording the radio show while I was working. So when people listened to that first episode, it was like 100 different pieces that we had to put together. And since I've had the show, man, it's just been great. Really had some amazing guests. Like I said, you've been on there a couple of times. We've had some folks. We actually had brother Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar Binks in Star Wars universe, and he came back, on the Mandalorian as a Jedi and so forth. We've had folks from the intellectual community. We've had folks from the artistic community, and it's just really been great having the show on. So that's just something I'm really proud of.
Okay, that's super powerful, man. That's definitely super powerful. Uh, So I want to kind of get into like this whole tech landscape and Afrofuturism, right? So there's some current technology trends that's going on within Afrofuturism. We talk about 3D printing, we talk about
Right.
artificial intelligence. I mean, and there's a ton of other things. I mean, even in the art realm, we got projection mapping, man, AR, VR, all of these different platforms that are coming out.
Right.
But like what has been, your feedback, or what do you think about these particular trends? And then like because part of what we've been doing, with regards is we're looking to educate the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, as the black and brown community, we only gravitate to what we know. So we're looking to expose, like we talked about the gaming industry, where, that's $440 billion
Yes.
industry, and for the most part, we are the biggest consumers within this industry, so we want people to be able to tap in and understand that there is potential, besides you just playing, but being
Right.
creators and innovators within this space. So now, we're rising within this 3D printing. We talk about artificial intelligence, making sure that people are able to tap in and be able to leverage this resource, so it doesn't become a weapon, or so it doesn't become a weapon. You can actually use it as a tool to
Right.
be able to help you grow your platform, regardless of it's business, or if you're in the media space, or whatever the case may be. And any other trends and everything. So where you see the tech landscape going, within the next 10 to 20 years? What's your feelings on that?
Well, first, like the speed at which the technology is developing is astounding. Every time you look around, you turn around, there's a new piece of technology being added on to the old. So the speed at which it's developing, I think, is pretty amazing. And I think that in and of itself should be telling about the direction that we're heading in. And if you can
Mhm.
see that it's developing so quickly, that means you better get on board. You look at, for example, this platform, you look at YouTube, you look at Twitter, where a lot of people missed out. Had they gotten in early, they would have been more established and perhaps benefited more from it economically and so forth, and also been able to control the narrative. So with all of these things that are happening so rapidly in these other realms, we really got to get on this as a people. Because one of the things that happens is, I think that many times Black people are fearful of technology in a weird kind of way. When certain new technologies develop, we're always skeptical because so many times in the past, technology has been used against us. So
Mm.
I think there's like this standoffish type of attitude that we have towards technology. And then once it blossoms and it grows and we want to jump on it, as you just said. So what we want to do is we don't want Black folks to be fearful of it. We
Mhm.
have to see it for what it is, and we have to recognize its potential, because when we don't, we're oftentimes left out. And the other thing that happens is, you mentioned it being a weapon. And yes, many times when new technologies are developed, it is oftentimes used as a method to police us and control us and
Mhm.
dictate our way of thinking. That's another reason why we have to get behind it. Because as people are talking about AI, people have to remember AI is pulling its information from cyberspace.
Mhm.
AI is pulling its information from social media and all these platforms. So you have to ask yourself, what would AI say about us based upon our traffic, based upon our representation in the
Mhm.
cyber world, in the virtual world, in the social world? So that's another reason why we got to be part of this thing. And also we have to be mindful of what we're putting out there, because AI as it develops, it's going to start to reach conclusions
Mhm.
about not only people as a whole, but groups of individuals, okay? Or individual groups, I should say. So you have to ask yourself, what will AI start to think about us? What does it currently think about us and our future? So that's another reason why we need to actively get involved. And of course, you mentioned there's the economic component.
Mhm.
who knows where this thing is going to go in terms of its economic potential? Because once again, when you look at Facebook, when you look at all these other platforms that many, that we were around for its beginnings, the economic opportunities really weren't there, but look where it is today.
Yeah,
So,
I'm looking at two things that we are a part of. As far as the media platform, for us to be able to develop a comic book series, animation, for us to even have this podcast on these particular platforms and YouTube and everything, being able to leverage technology and be able to deliver and tell a story. You being on radio, and having your own radio program that's a part of this network. 10 years ago, this wasn't even possible. From the internet speeds, we come from a dial-up age, as
right.
far as internet, and shoot, for those who don't know, AOL, which is AOL Time Warner now, right? Because they were able to, AOL was so big that
Yep.
they consumed Time Warner.
Yes.
But AOL was the dial-up network. That was the first place that you were able to get on the internet. And then for those millennials and anybody who else is tuned in, you couldn't be on the phone and on the internet at the same time.
Exactly.
It was a problem. You couldn't do that. And I remember when when internet was really, popping and thriving, like when the infrastructure, when we would go to Senegal, we actually had to go to internet cafes because, internet wasn't there. But now we have smartphones, and we have smartphones where now we have the internet and it's portable. And portability has made commerce, has made being able to have social media and to be able to deliver your message that much more efficient and effectively, where business wasn't able to even leverage that. We're able to put out free content for people at a low cost or entry rate, so those things weren't possible 10 years ago. And just to think and dream about any of this stuff, like you said, one day you just got up and said, hey, I wanted to have a radio show.
Exactly.
Like you'd have to go through some steps. You'd probably had to go through a whole interview process and everything, and then leverage your network to be able to do that. Now, you dream it, conceive it, and believe it. Now you can make it happen. So that's what it is.
Exactly. I see with Nevo talking about stop dating us. You said AOL. I remember you used to get the little CD that would come in the magazine. You put it in the computer, and that was the way you got AOL. But the thing is, once again, as this technology is happening so rapidly, the biggest message is I just want to emphasize this: we can't be afraid of the technology. We have to be able to embrace the technology, because when these things come about, automatically Black folks start to think about, oh my God, this thing is going to be watching me. This thing is going to be used as a means to control and so forth. And it quite possibly could do those things. That's why you have to be on the inside. So already, for example, we're seeing situations where you have Instagram, you have Twitter, you have Facebook. And if you're a Black person and you're putting out certain information, those platforms can shut you down. So the question is, by now, why haven't we developed and supported a platform of our own? Because I know some folks out there, they got the technical know-how by now that can do this. So what are we waiting for? I don't have that skill set, but someone else does. So we can have a Facebook, a Twitter, or X, whatever, and all these other things that other people are setting up. We have to have these platforms for ourselves as well, because that's where the future lies in. It lies in ownership, because the real currency of the future is the same currency right now. It's actually information.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The real currency right now is information. Information is being sold, information is being passed and so forth, and is being exchanged for money. So the money itself isn't the currency anymore. That's not the way I see it anyway. I see it as the information is being exchanged. I see it as the content that's being created. So we have to create a platform for ourselves, so that if YouTube doesn't want it, if it's Facebook doesn't want it, if Instagram doesn't want it, we can go there, and we have to support those things.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we definitely got to be able to tell our story because I mean, and that's part of what we're talking about, especially with artificial intelligence. We need to be the programmers and developers, right? To
Yes.
be able to tell our narrative, to be able to tell our perspective, so it doesn't interpret this data, incorrectly. The one thing I will say about social media, that's for those of you who don't know, right? This is the way that and in the black community, we got this thing, and I'm gonna talk right to the camera. We got this
Right.
no snitching rule, right? We got this whole no snitching rule. But through social media, most people, and I'm gonna say 95% of you, are snitching every day. You are detailing every aspect of your life through social media and through the lens and everything, and understanding that this is being probably monitored or watched or whatever the case by some outside entity. And I know this because I my day job is I work as a school administrator, and when young people are doing stuff that they're not supposed to do,
They
you get
posted it.
the prosecutor's office that's contacting me, asking questions about these type of things that they're doing.
Right.
And the way that they're getting this information is through social media. So
Right.
when you're doing, I'm saying criminal activity, and then you're documenting that, and then you
Right.
have your friends and everybody that's a part of that, that is a way of you snitching on yourself. So you just dry snitching on yourself. So
Well,
that's one thing. But also on top of that, this
mhm.
is also a way that Brother Will was talking about earlier, that they're closing doors on opportunities, right? So I actually understand that you have freedom of speech, and everyone can say and do what they want, but there is consequences for that freedom. So when you post yourself doing something that's inappropriate or whatever, now people have the discretion to be able to judge you based on those type of things, and it becomes public. And computer bases are like mailbox slots. You could put mail in it, and then there's a label on it, but when you look to erase it, you're just pulling the label off of the mailbox, but it still lives in that database and that server, for someone else to be able to access it outside of yourself or whatever. So, I just wanted to give that little
Hey,
tidbit, for my young people who will be tuning in and everything, because your college, your employment, your future employment opportunities are all based on your social media. Now, instead of background checks, they're doing social media. They're looking at your
yeah.
social media profile. So if you ratchet online, you don't fit into the culture or whatever, that's something that you're doing. But also, I also want to also empower you to think about, when you're developing your business and everything, how does your business look, online, through your social network and everything else that you are doing or whatever. Because a lot of people thinking with their 15-year-old selves, not thinking about what's going to happen when they're 25, 35, 45, or so on and so forth. So I just wanted to kind of, just touch on that
Right.
aspect, because that's the new trend, right? You can do whatever you want, and you can put all this stuff on social media for you to get likes and clicks and shares and everything, but you're not thinking about, that business that you're looking to start, or that college that you're trying to get into. All of those things are under scrutiny, and I've seen young people lose scholarship opportunities. They got full
Well,
rides because
right.
of stuff and content that they're posting online. So I just
Well,
wanted
let
to
me.
make sure that people, and I've also seen job opportunities that's been taken away,
Oh,
or you don't
100%.
get the call back
100%.
because of something that you have been posting, publicly on social media.
Well, and let me say this, because I also see in the comment section where they talked about how GTP has a racial bias when evaluating resumes. I mean, this thing it's a living thing. Let's not kid ourselves, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's drawing conclusions based upon the data that's put in front of it and put in front of it. A couple things are happening that folks aren't mindful of. I was fortunate enough to grow up without social media. And when
Yep.
I say I was fortunate enough, I really mean that. People
I,
used to
I
have,
think we all, brother. I
yeah,
think we all, because if they had a camera that, hey, I
oh,
probably wouldn't be sitting where we are
exactly.
right now.
Exactly. And remember, I don't know if people still do this, but they would have a thing called a diary or a journal, right? And the idea was you could write out whatever you wanted. This was just for you. If you were angry that day, you could write it out in your journal, in your diary. Nobody was going to read it. I got an older sister. She guarded it with her life. You know what I'm saying? Because the idea was, in that moment, you were feeling a certain type of way. In that moment, you were going to feel that way the next day or a week from now or a couple of months from now. It was just in the moment. You were angry at whoever it was. Maybe you're angry at your boss. Maybe you're angry at your friend. What social media has done is, when we talk about the other side of social media, it has now tricked us into revealing our innermost thoughts to the public for the purposes of entertainment. And it's become normalized, where now we're writing down our innermost thoughts, and we're writing stuff down in the moment. We're writing stuff down when we're angry, when we're passionate about a particular topic, and we're not thinking about the future. When I commit something to social media, that's out there for the rest of my life and beyond it. So like you said, you don't know what direction you're heading in. So one of the things we have to do is, I would recommend, we have to start scaling back in exposing so much of ourselves on social media, because it is being weaponized against us. And once again, we talk about living in this country, nothing is just whatever, fill in the blank. It's never just entertainment. It's never just sports. There's always something else to it, especially as Black folk. There's always an underlying theme. There's always something else that is there that is oftentimes weaponized against us, and we don't realize it many times until it's too late. So for all of the great things that social media is able to do, it can also be quickly turned against us, and we're seeing this time and time again. As you said, folks go out for a job, they're pulling up social media accounts now. People go out for scholarships, they're pulling up social media accounts. You apply for a college or a university. I've seen these stories of people that have taken provocative pictures in their cap and gown, and as a result have lost out on certain opportunities. So in as much as this is exciting and it's fun to get likes or whatever the case might be, we also have to be aware and cognizant of the implications of these things. And also keep in mind, as Black folk, we don't get the passes that other communities get. That's something we can't forget. Cyberspace is not a space for equality. Let's not get it twisted. Okay. That is
it's definitely an area where we are being judged at a different lens. Anybody could look at their favorite celebrity, and if they said something controversial 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they're bringing it back up. They just waiting. You know what I'm saying? So they're using these public platforms and then waiting for you to get to whatever point that you get to, and then they go on fish and look for something, and then they bring it right back up. If you said some homophobic slurs, if you said any of those type of things that are offensive or offended any particular group, that stuff is going to resurface, later on in life. And like I said, that's where the weaponization of that stuff come in, so understand that layer of the social media. And we talk about, freedom of speech and everything, because look at your future self. And then we talk about the digital footprint. So, Blue Lotus, thank you again for talking about, your digital footprint. Cause I talk to young people about that all the time.
Exactly.
I have a question for you, Will.
Sure.
Back. As far as technology. As technology grows, it's replacing a lot of people's jobs and things of that nature, right? For example, you have computer programmers, things in cybersecurity. Now, AI is doing some of those same jobs. For example, Amazon was going to open up 1,000 no worker stores, stores with no workers, and they pulled back because they realized that to run the cameras, it takes 1,000 workers in another country.
Right.
So when you look at it from a standpoint of where do somebody in a computer field see themselves if the AI can replace a lot of those jobs? Like, how do they prepare for that?
I think the best thing you can do is you have to put in the work and the research to project. Okay. And your projections may not necessarily be correct, but at least you're preparing yourself to move in a different direction. Because we stated earlier, this stuff is moving at a rapid pace. I look at it like this. At one point in the history of this country, if you were a blacksmith, you could do well for yourself. Okay, you can hammer out, horseshoes, and you can do all these things with metalwork and so forth. That's gone now. It's seen as a novelty if somebody does something like that, because at some point, once the car was invented, that eliminated all of those jobs and new jobs were created. So what we have to do is, and this is where Afrofuturism comes into this, is we have to start looking at the possibilities of what's not going to be here anymore. But then we also have to look at what might be in its place. And we have to start preparing ourselves for this. We cannot get comfortable when we get that quote unquote dream job or that dream business. Because look at the businesses that have gone out of business because they weren't prepared when everything started to switch to online sales. Look at the businesses that went out. These are not individuals. These are folks that have brains, working for them, trying to see the direction that things are going, and they weren't prepared. Look at the way that a lot of businesses folded when they couldn't roll with the changes that COVID brought. Okay. So you always have to constantly have this idea of what could happen. And even if you're wrong, it's better to be prepared. I can talk a little geek talk. I don't know if you remember this movie called World War Z.
Yeah.
Where they had the zombie invasion, right? So I remember in the film, and I never forgot this scene because to me it was so vital, where the zombies were taking over and the only spot it didn't have control of was Israel. So the guy goes to Israel and he said, well, how did you come up with this? And they said, well, I think they called him the 13th vote or 13th man. His job was to think about things that the other 12 advisors did not think about. It was his job to come up with the most outlandish outcomes of whatever it is that they were discussing. And I think it was like the 13th job or the 13th seat. This guy came up with a scenario in his head where it was possibly zombies. Now, I'm sure to the other 12, it sounded ridiculous, but they were preparing for it. And I love to use that example to say that we have to have that part of our brain or have that person in our circle that's willing to think way outside the box and say, this could happen, this could happen. And it might sound outlandish, but it's something that we have to prepare for. Because if you think of what AI is doing today, I guarantee you, if you had said this could happen 10 or 20 years ago, folks would have said, oh man, you talking about the Terminator, you talking about, Total Recall and so forth. And all of those things are happening. Look at what the Jetsons predicted.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The only thing the Jetsons didn't get so far are the flying cars, and those are starting to come into vogue. Look at what Star Trek got right. Okay. So when these folks make these outlandish assumptions, it's actually dealing with your question. We have to look at the possibilities of what could happen and do our best to prepare ourselves for any and all possible outcomes. So once again, to sum it up, look at what's being eliminated and just kind of, nix that from the list in terms of, possible jobs or futures. But then you start to start thinking about what could happen and do your best to prepare yourself for those possible outcomes.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, because with all of this, and that's a part of the education that we want to kind of provide and get people in tune to what are the possibilities. Even from the level of what we see reparations as, right? So we talk about, we talk about the past, we talk about the present, but Afrofuturism really speaks to how do we address the social ills, the police brutality, all of those things that's happening, and predict what this future could look like, right? Be able to put that lens on it and tell our story of how our community should look. And then from there, like, we could have a discussion, be able to shape it and everything. But one of the things, and just coming from an engineer mindset, we are solutions driven, right? We're solution based. So we take a problem, we analyze it, and we come up with alternative solutions for it. And that's what Afrofuturism kind of talks about, being able to take real world problems and being able to actually come up with solutions through art, through media, through technology, and everything in between. And now, we get biotech, we got biotechnology. Last week, I talked about 3D printing of organs, yes. And that's something that, we talk about humanoids and the Terminator and all of this stuff. I mean, the amount of applications that's going on. I mean, from the 3D printing world, as far as space exploration, from the medical field and everything, is endless. When we talk about life expectancy, one of the biggest things, on a black market, is organ stealing and stuff like that. Now, if you could 3D print an organ, of course they still working out the bugs. Is still a very fairly new technology. Of course, the life expectancy is not that, but you have people now who live, with artificial organs, through pacemakers and everything else. But now you being able to 3D print living tissue, that's something that's that's above and beyond. That goes into the whole cloning and everything else that we've been talking about. But I just want to pause for 1 second. I definitely want to pause because I want to kind of tap into a couple of things really quick. You tuned into the Futures Black podcast every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for tuning in. This is episode 12, where we talk about Afrofutures Unveiled. And we have our guest here, William Jones, the founder of Afrofuturism Network, man. I want to kind of switch gears for a second. I see we have a number of people in here. I want to take a moment to for the hip hop world, for the entertainment world, DJ Mr. C, who just passed. I want to give a condolences out to his family. Lou Gossip Jr., one of the great legends, who just passed. And then there's a number of individuals, people who are close to us.
OJ Simpson.
OJ Simpson just passed today as well. So I want to just kind of do a moment. I do a moment of silence, if anything, for these individuals, but and also health and wealth. And tomorrow is not always promised, so we want to plan for tomorrow, definitely, because a lot of times we don't plan for tomorrow. But tomorrow is not always promised, so I definitely want to just take a moment to give those individuals their accolades. But and then understand that life can be short, so shout out to Mel. Looking forward to you getting better very soon, brother, very soon.
Since we going on the health, far as what I see, William, is a lot of times when we talk about technology, we never talk about the technology of the food industry. Like right now they're making fake clone meat where they passed a law where they can implement fake chicken, everything like that. So what's your view on that, far as the pros and the cons of that? Because they'll say stuff like to help feed people, but then the negative effect is cancer, things of that nature. So what's some of the things we can do, or your view of it, and what we can do to make a better future for us as Black people dealing with things like that?
Wow. One of the things I think that we need to be mindful of is, people always talk about holistic healing, talk about natural healing, right? Or natural remedies. And I say natural remedies only help when you're doing natural things to yourself. When you start to do unnatural things to yourself, I don't know that natural remedies can necessarily help those things. And I think that all too often with the dietary habits that we have, the lack of exercise and other things that are happening at sea, where folks not getting sleep, we do these unnatural things to ourselves, and then we expect natural healing. So we have to start to move to where, if we're going to have natural healing, we also have to start having natural living. Okay. Now, I'm not perfect in all things, and I slip and so forth, but I do my best, to stay in shape and take care of myself. And that's something that we don't talk often enough about, and I think as far as the food goes, that never comes up in an election. That never comes up in political conversations. We allow these people to take office, and we never get their perspective on health and well-being. So one of the things that we can start to do for those folks that are involved in politics, start questioning, potential candidates on that issue. What kind of policies are you going to pass? Are you going to be the man or the woman that's going to go along with cloning meat? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's the Democrat or the Republican stance on that? We have no idea. So we're not even asking folks that are in decision-making positions these important questions. Now, in as much as it is up to ourselves to take care of ourselves, we can only do but so much, because we still got to go out and shop at the supermarkets. We're still going to go out to eat. We're still going to do certain things where we have government agencies that are responsible for policing those very things, but we don't know Joe Biden's position on health and well-being. We don't know Donald Trump's position on health and well-being. So one thing that is happening is they keep us caught up in these nonsensical conversations, and they get us caught up on certain issues that's not really affecting how long I live.
Yep.
And the things that really,
because in a sense that becomes bio warfare.
Exactly. So the things that really affect how long I live, they ain't talking about. You know what I'm saying? So when you say, what can we do? I would say that's one of the things that we can do. The other thing, of course, always is to educate ourselves. And as Black people, don't be ashamed to check up on your brother. Don't be ashamed to check on your sister and question them. You know, right now, if somebody's smoking a cigarette and I know him, I might feel comfortable saying to him, hey, man, you might want to put that cigarette down. But do I feel comfortable saying to them, hey, man, you might want to put down that plate of chicken and waffles. That's your third plate. We got to get comfortable in having that conversation with each other. You know, brother, I noticed you were breathing kind of heavy when you walked up those stairs. You all right? You know what I'm saying? So we don't even feel comfortable. When's the last time, you know, fortunately, I do surround myself with people, with like-minded people, and we're sending each other texts when we're, you know, we're working out, when we're doing those things. Do we have that positive reinforcement in our community? And I'm not into body shaming, but if you love someone and you're concerned about their well-being, you should be able to have a conversation with them to say, hey, I noticed this, that, and the third. What can I do to help? What can we do together? Because politicians aren't going to do but so much, but then our community has to do the rest. You know, call if you're going to the church, if you're going to the mosque, okay, wherever you're going to worship, call on those leaders to talk about it, okay, and bring it to the congregation's attention. That's the only way we're going to do it. The things that we feel comfortable talking to each other about, the things that we feel comfortable and patting each other on the back about, do those things really lead to our longevity? Most cases, it doesn't. You know, it's nothing for me, you know, to send you a picture of some bottles of liquor that me and my man, you know, tossed down last night. And you might say, oh, man, y'all was getting lit. What's that doing for me? What's that doing for you? You know what I'm saying? I want to know how many push-ups you can do. You know what I'm saying? That's the conversation we need to be having. So I think on a community level, we need to start having those conversations and be comfortable talking to each other about it. But on a political level, we need to start asking, you know, I don't care if you're running for city council. I don't care if you're running for Congress, the Senate, the governor, whatever the case might be. If you're a Supreme Court justice, how might you rule on certain cases? We're not challenging these folks that are taking the reins of leadership in this country on health. The only one that I can think of in recent years was Michelle Obama, and they gave her hell.
You know,
and she wasn't even an office holder. You know what I'm saying? She was the first lady, and she was the main one bringing attention to it. So once again, to go back to your question, that's the way I believe that we should deal with it. And can I just say one thing that I wanted to go back to? I apologize, but something that you said that I thought was pretty important, Brother Gifted. When we talk about all these things that are happening and we talk about the work, I'm going to come back to that because I see a good question. Do you think those conversations are uncomfortable in fear of the receiver feeling attacked? Brother, if you're my friend, and I'm going to come back to the point I want to make, but I think that's a great question. If you're my friend, if you are my brother, if you're my sister, we got to stop just using that as a way of greeting one another.
Scapegoat.
If you can't handle that conversation, then are we really friends? You should be able to appreciate the fact that I'm asking you that question. Now, granted, there's a time and a place and there's a way to talk to people. And the better I know you, the more things I can ask. But if I'm really trying to help you, peace, Joe, I see you. If I'm really trying to help you, then I might have to risk that. Because I guarantee you, if I'm genuinely concerned about your health, you might be mad at me on Monday, but you might be calling me up on Friday, brother. I'm glad you asked. That's the risk you got to take when you love somebody. That's the risk that a community has to take. Because you'd rather hear from me than the doctor. Because once the doctors start talking, that's a whole nother conversation. And I agree, it can be tense. I get it. And I know it can be tense and it can be uncomfortable, but it has to be normalized. The same way, I know, I got you, bro. But I'm just saying, in terms of the same way we normalize having conversations online about Black men and Black women can't get along, and those will get 1 million likes, and those types of conversations will go on for days, months, weeks, years at a time. We gotta be, and we don't care about people's feelings then. We can talk about Black women and Black men all day and the problems we have with each other and not fear the repercussions of that conversation. Then we shouldn't have the fear or of the repercussions of conversations around health. Okay. And I just want to say one more thing. I also, with social media, one of the potential problems is sometimes I feel like we've done enough when we simply post a conversation. We feel like we've done enough when we simply post a picture and so forth. And we're substituting the good feeling that we have in doing that as opposed to actually doing the work. You know what I'm saying? So that's the other side of social media, where I think that folks in power are recognizing, because social media is so visual, if we just give people images, they'll feel like they did something. So if we give them the image of Black Lives Matter on an NBA floor for a season, that'll make them feel like there's been some progress. If we can get Nancy Pelosi and some other leaders to take a knee wearing kente cloth and dashikis, that'll give the illusion that work is being done. Because if you notice, all of the things that we looked at during that time when we had all of this uprisings in the street and so forth, all of the things we looked at, what has been the substantive change since then? All we got was a bunch of likes and a bunch of good feelings and some really positive or powerful images. But what we didn't get was substance. So that was the other thing I just wanted to go back to.
So one of the things I want to kind of get on real quick, and I wanted to, and I know Delonte definitely want to kind of speak to this with brother Blue Lotus. Oh, shout out to JoJo. Shout out to JoJo. Thank you for tuning in to the Futures Black podcast. We're talking about Afrofutures Unveiled. Afrofutures Unveiled. And
we got folks on Instagram too. Don't forget about them.
Yes. So just being able to tap in to all of this. But Blue Lotus talked about the mental health aspect and just being intentional about that. I mean, I know we have some initiatives that we've been doing around Black men with regards to 41 Gentlemen Association, where we've been meeting every Sunday to bring fellowship and to be able to address some issues. And one of the things that has happened out of it, which is very, very organic, was it actually became a platform for men to be able to discuss issues that they're dealing with on a daily basis that they don't be able to discuss with their family members, their immediate peers, their friends, and everything. That's unbiased and everything. So being able to address that is something that's super, super powerful as we talk about Afrofutures, because when we get into the health and wealth aspect of everything, part of the legacy of the Black community is being able to be here 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, and not die from any of these high, stress, high blood pressure, cancer, and all these other diseases that may be that's affecting the body, and is affecting Black people at alarming rates and everything. And it ties into the food, it ties into the stress, it ties into all of these other factors that's going on, within our community. But how do we address that accordingly? And that is something that, like I said, we've been intentional about, with regards to developing a men's group around fellowship and everything. And I'll let Delonte kind of speak more about that.
I mean, somebody posted mental wellness. Part of the mental wellness, some of the ways we can do better is we get outside in nature. Because a lot of times what I learned is as much social media we have, it made us antisocial.
Yes.
So we have to begin to communicate with each other on the physical level, seeing each other face to face. So far as the men's Sunday meetup and why it's important, because like he said, you can't see yourself in the future if you're not healthy or alive. A lot of people lost their businesses. A lot of people couldn't function in society because their health deteriorated on them.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to think about that. Like when we think about Afrofuturism, we also have to think about health and mental health. A lot of people lost their minds when COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how many people didn't have it all after COVID.
Oh yeah.
So what we realize is we need to come together and let people express themselves, how they say, in a safe space. And then there's another side of it is let's not take in so much negativity.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you got to shut down the white noise. And you know, far as Black people in the future, we shunned upon therapy for a while, right? But sometime in this day and age, it's too much therapy talk at times. Like
Yes.
it's
Agreed.
overwhelming. Like
Agreed.
everybody's not a narcissist, everybody's
Right.
not this or that. So
Right.
for me, when it comes to mental health, it's about you having the right mental state of mind to function at not what they call normalcy, but what we call normalcy. Because a lot of times their level of normal is not our level of normal.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well,
things have fallen so greatly.
right.
So, you know, I just have my point of views of mental health, and, you know, maybe you can speak on your perspective of mental health from what you see on a radio station and interaction
Sure.
your day to day.
Before
Sure.
you do that, I
Mhm.
just want to give a shout out to DJ Fauzi. DJ Fauzi, peace and blessings to you. Thank you for tuning in. Definitely appreciate you guys. Thank you everyone who's been tuning in, man. You know, we've been doing this. We've been going strong. But go ahead, brother Will.
Yeah, well, first I want to shout out Blue Lotus. She's a real fighter champion when it comes to mental health. She's been fighting a good fight for a very long time. So I appreciate her comments because I know the work she's been doing behind the scenes. One of the things we have to realize when we talk about Afrofuturism and envisioning a future, we have to envision a future where this society as it exists today no longer exists, because mental health or the lack of is big business. Okay. If we're healthy, there's a whole there are industries that would not be able to function if we're healthy. If we're satisfied, there are industries that can't function if we're satisfied. If we're genuinely happy, there are industries that can't function if we're happy. Folks are banking on us being unwell mentally and physically and spiritually because that's the only way they can make money. If you want to make money in this country as it stands right now, get involved in those things that promote fear, that promote disease and being unhealthy. Get involved in those things that promote hate. All those things that do us harm on every level are some of the biggest money makers there are that exist in this country. Okay, so understand and challenging and really wanting to be about mental health, you're really talking about dismantling a huge segment of this country's machinery. And part of the reason why mental health is so difficult to talk about in a true form, in a true way, because like you said, I do think, you know, we're being overwhelmed with it. But if you really want to deal with being happy, being satisfied and so forth, you're challenging a lot of people's ability to make money. So if you're going to take that fight on, understand those folks are going to be fighting back as well. So the minute you start to say, you know, we don't need this, because a lot of stress comes from just trying to buy things. Imagine the amount of stress that would be off our shoulders if we weren't trying to buy things we really didn't need. The amount of stress that would be off of our shoulders if we were simply happy and satisfied with where we are. Folks are seeing that, and they know that if folks start to get happy or too happy, they're going to be out of business. So that's part of the conversation, or part of the things that we need to realize, that in and of itself is a revolutionary act. Okay. As far as true mental health goes, folks that really need the help, once again, I don't hear people challenging the people in positions of power that make decisions every day. What's your position on mental health? And once again, I'm not talking about folks on social media. We challenge people on social media who may or may not have any true expertise in the realms of mental health, but we don't question the people who are congressmen, congresswomen, senators, governors, and so forth. We don't challenge those people. We have to stop aiming for the low-hanging fruit. It's easy for me to say, then I see, well, what do you think about mental health? And challenge you on, what could you do? Whatever your position is on mental health, what could you actually do? But when it's time to meet my congressperson, when it's time to meet, Senator so-and-so, Governor so-and-so, I want to talk about all these other issues, once again, that don't add to my life. The stuff we're calling on these politicians to talk about, the conversations they're having, because in my opinion, many of them aren't qualified, aren't intelligent enough to really do anything about the problem. So they keep us diverted, talking about all this other nonsense. I work with young people as well, and I always say to them, you got to be mindful. When folks want to control you, they get you caught up in wedge issues. They get you caught up in arguments and fights that really have no consequence to your life. And I say to them, for example, I say, whatever happened with the bathrooms? And everybody looks at me, what I'm talking about. Remember, for like a couple of months, one of the biggest fights they had was over bathrooms and who could use them. Whatever happened to that issue? It just disappeared. Nothing was ever truly resolved. Everything is pretty much the same way it was before the argument. They just use that so they wouldn't be forced to talk about anything else. Anytime you have these folks that are running for office, to hold office, when they can't do something, when they're incompetent, they get us caught up in other arguments. So you want to challenge whether or not Black people or people can learn about Black history in the classroom. Okay, but what about mental health? Or what about DEI? You know what I'm saying? They keep bringing up these things that will get us on a visceral level, to get us arguing, so they themselves, who are incompetent and incapable of doing any real work, they don't have to do nothing. Listen to what folks are arguing about in the lead up to any election. When I was younger, elections used to be boring because they were talking about taxes. They were talking about interest rates. They were talking about all of these things that as a young person, I wasn't necessarily interested in, but it was vital. Today, they don't have to talk about anything.
Yeah.
If you know, look, what issues are they talking about when they debate? They're not debating anything.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's just all about
they argue nonsense.
Yeah.
So if you bring up mental health, they would have no idea they would have no idea how to deal with it. If you bring up health and wellness, they have no idea how to talk about it. If you bring up the real economy in terms of how are people able to afford rent or a mortgage, they don't talk about that. They keep us caught up in these foolish conversations because they themselves shouldn't have the jobs that they have. So once again, to bring it back to Afrofuturism, those of us that are in this, those of us that are leading the charge, and there's a lot of Black folk out there that are doing this, we're having these conversations where we're talking about, the intellectual side of things, the political side of things, the economic side of things, the spiritual side of things, because these elected leaders aren't doing that. And we need to stop giving them oxygen by feeding into their foolishness because they can't handle the conversation. So we want to talk about mental health and so forth within our communities. We do have to recognize that we need help, but we also need some peace. Part of the reason why mental health is such a challenge today is because nothing is ever off. And I'm going to date myself again. Remember, TV used to sign off. You know what I'm saying?
Man. Now we got 24 hours.
24 hours.
Streaming networks all day.
Take their phone in the back.
Yeah. You constantly plugged in. You know, when we talk about the Matrix and everything.
Yeah. Before cell phones, man, you better not call me at 9 o'clock unless somebody died.
Mm-hmm.
When the phone rang before cell phones, if the phone rang after 9 o'clock, it was bad news. Because everybody needed a break.
Yeah.
If I was out and I missed your call, I'll be all right. I'll find you. We were okay. But now we're constantly inundated and we're exhausted. I'm sorry, I just went off on a rant, but go ahead.
No, yeah, definitely. And you know, like right now, because I just want to switch gears a little because I know we going deep into the, you know, the health and wellness aspect of it.
Right.
And when we talk about Afrofuturism, I mean, that's something that we definitely need to talk about because we need to be able to be here in order to enjoy the future that we are looking to build and predict, you know. Right. So that's definitely a very important topic, you know, with regards to this space. But I also want to kind of touch on because there's a couple of things when we talk about Afrofuturism and arts and media, you know, the influence Afrofuturism has on literature, music, film, and visual arts. You know, how do we do that?
I was smiling because I was looking at the comments.
Oh, I thought I got to call that because of the minutes. Yeah, actually,
that's
you're right.
That's
In the beginning, for the cell phone,
in the beginning,
about the minutes.
Right.
The minutes plan used to be call me after 9 o'clock. It definitely was. So yes, man, you definitely hit that. But we talk about if you got a phone call on the landline. Don't know about the landline. Actually, that's the most reliable network right now because it uses 5 volts of electricity. So when the apocalypse hit and everything, and the cell phone towers go down, you can still pick up that landline and still get a dial tone in the signal. So that's definitely that.
No, you know, I love that comment.
Yeah, we talk about taking care of yourself, exercise, eating, and all that. Thank you, definitely, Dulos. We definitely want to talk about that. So getting back to the Afrofuturism art and media, you know, shout out to Suleiman, who was in the building. You know, Suleiman Akwe, who actually has a exhibition coming up. Hey, put that in the chat, Suleiman. We could definitely tap into that. I know we are be at BiteCon week, but we definitely want to let people know who are here in Newark, New Jersey, about your one-man show that's happening. So definitely put that in the chat. So thank you about that. When we talk about storytelling and making sure that we are telling the narrative that people need to see, that's where art, media, the visual arts and literature and everything kind of comes into play. I think of music where we get the, you know, Sun-Ra, more recently Janelle Monáe, Outkast, you know, AT-Aliens and all of that stuff, which was an influence. I mean, from a visual standpoint, a lot of people don't know, you know, Afrofuturism was embedded in Missy Elliott's all of her stuff, man. She touched on that. And then you know, Delonte, I know he attested this, will be where Janet and Michael did Scream, and they had a lot of you know, elements of Afrofuturism in that, you know, but that's a way to be able to talk and predict, you know, what these future outcomes should be and everything.
Exactly.
Suleiman, all right. So April 27th, he has the one-man show, Suleiman exhibit -2024. Eventbrite.com, you know. So thank you, Suleiman. We definitely wanted to make sure that those who are in Newark, New Jersey at the time, please make sure you support that on April 27th. Thank you for that, and thank you for tuning in to the Futures Black podcast. Go ahead, Will. I'm sorry you wanted to.
No, it's all good. It's all good. You know, and what's crazy is, you know, I always think in terms of the positives, but also, you know, the negatives. And in as much as, you know, we're creating all these great things, we also have to be mindful of, we have to protect those things. We also have to be mindful of taking ownership and not be ashamed to take ownership. A lot of times I think Black folks get uncomfortable when we create something and it's ours. We always start to question, you know, can we bring other folks in, or, you know, can other people do this and do that? Let's take ownership of it. Let's set some rules and some boundaries so that we can control the direction that it's going in. Because if you notice, as we start to make progress in one area, they always come back and try to negate our gains in another. And entertainment is oftentimes used as a method or a means to negate our gains, because what we see or how we feel in the moment can go a long way in terms of how we interact with one another. And, you know, I'm going to bring this up. I'm sure a lot of folks have seen it. Have you seen, for example, the trailer for Good Times, the animated series?
Cartoon.
Exactly.
I said, now, what happened?
I didn't see that, brother.
You haven't seen it? Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Brother, I can't even explain it to you. This is something you got to see for yourself to believe that this will be created in 2024. And Steph Curry, of all people, one of the bankrollers of this nonsense. And actually, some of the members of the Good Times cast have actually come out to speak out against this show. And the reason why I bring this up is because when you look at what Black artists are starting to do in the realms of animation, okay, in terms of what we're doing independently, what we're doing streaming wise, and what some of major Hollywood productions are starting to take notice of, all of a sudden now we get this Good Times trailer that's going to appear on Netflix. So in as much as we start to make these moves, you have folks that are constantly trying to turn the clock back on us. So we have to be real protective, and we got to start holding folks accountable. You know, next time Steph Curry got a game, folks need to be at the game with some signs, explain Good Times. I don't want to hear about your assist or the number 3 pointers you threw up. I want to hear about why you bankrolling Good Times. You know what I'm saying? Explain that. No one ever explains to us when they mistreat us. You know what I'm saying? Folks get to say and do whatever they want with the Black community without any true penalty.
Yep.
Okay. Without ever being challenged. You got folks that make a lot of money off of making us look bad.
Yeah, that's true.
And it goes unchallenged. So with Afrofuturism, what I love about it is we have to support those Black men and women that have been getting it right from day one, and stop celebrating folks that get it right eventually. You know, like when you put out PB Soldier and I look at all these other Black-owned independent comic books and so forth, if we can give billions to, Wakanda and Marvel and DC, okay, let's start giving money to folks that don't have that checkered history in the arts and in music and in other forms of entertainment, okay? That's the other part of it, protecting it and also supporting artists that's putting the work in. We love to say what we want to see, but we got to talk about voting. Your dollar is a ballot.
Yep.
And every time you spend it, you're casting your vote for something. You're telling other people what you're voting for. So let's start voting for, the work that you're doing. Let's start voting for these artists that have been putting in the work from day one, that's been giving us the future that we want to see and the representation that we always claim we want to see. Let's stop voting with our dollar for folks that are not doing that. I hope I answered your question. So
definitely. I mean, and that's actually a good segue into, what we are going to be doing within this month. So in Miami, there is Miami Tech Month, right? So within Miami Tech Month, we're going to be doing BiteCon, and BiteCon or BiteCon Week, we're being very, very intentional. So BiteCon is Black innovation, technology, and entertainment. And we're looking at all of the career paths. We're looking at all of those different things, within that. And then how do we put Black and browns into these different positions and stuff? So we're actually doing BiteCon Week. And I want to kind of just show this quick video so everyone can kind of see what we're doing as far as BiteCon Week.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so that's BiteCon Week, which we're going to be doing the 21st through the 28th in Miami, right? Where we're going to actually have the 10th annual Kim Fest, we're celebrating Black animation, gaming, and comic book creators, and then all of the career paths that are the STEAM career paths that are attached to that. So that's something that we're doing, and we're being very intentional about. As you can see, we actually have a Tesla Light show, we have a hackathon that's going on, the ByteCon conference, and then of course the Kim Animation Film Festival, and then we're going to cap all of that off on Saturday with the Wakanda Ball. So as you got in your background and everything, we're actually going as if we are going through the fictional land of Wakanda, all taking place on in Miami, Florida, from the April 21st through the 28th,
Awesome.
which is a part of Miami Tech Month. But we actually have ByteCon Week, which is going to be a phenomenal opportunity to be able to tap into all of those different avenues there. And then, like I said, empower our Black and browns into these spaces that we want to gravitate them into, because we are less than 5% in the STEM areas, but these are the largest growth markets for the next 10 years, the next 20 years, and everything. And I don't know if JoJo's still up here, so shout out to her, who's also a part of Blacks at Microsoft. So BAM, Blacks at Microsoft, who is one of the sponsor of a couple of the events that we're actually doing at ByteCon Week. But we're just glad to be able to partner up with individuals, Kamara and Tamante, who were part of the ByteCon Foundation. And then of course we have PBS STEAM, Focus Black Star STEAM, which is our nonprofit entity that we are leading the way within just getting more Black and browns into these particular fields, man. So that is when we talk about the dollars and everything within this, and having them march their dollars within these particular spaces.
Yeah, and another thing that I'd like to add to that, and congratulations, man, on that and everything that you're doing.
Yeah, and I know you were a part of several of the Kim Fests. So
yeah, man. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Man, we definitely appreciative, man.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's what we got to do, man. Being in this space of Afrofuturism and Black creativity has been great for me, meeting folks like yourself. And, when you go to these different events, you're meeting the same people over and over again. So you start to establish these bonds. And I'm always happy to see people succeed and take it to the next level, because I can remember where folks started, as we are training up this generation of folk that are getting into tech, getting into STEM, STEAM, and so forth. The other thing that I think is important is we have to make sure that people start having a sense of obligation to their communities and to each other, because I think all too often what happens, or what can happen, is we train up a lot of Black folks to become professionals, and many times they end up, and I won't say many times, but sometimes they'll end up emulating the folks that don't mean us any good, And if we're going to push for Black folks in STEM and STEAM and so forth, then the question becomes, once you succeed in that field, once you start making these inroads, once you start having these innovations, what's the point of it?
Mm-hmm.
Am I sending you out into this world to solve other people's problems, or are you going to solve community problems?
Because and that's what I was going to say. Part of empowering, individuals to be able to, think through these different strategies and tactics and everything is for them to be able to bring it back to our communities, to be able to address the social ills and everything that's going on within our particular spaces. Hey, man. This has been a phenomenal talk. Please let everyone know how to get in contact with you.
Wow.
Any next projects that you have coming out and everything, as we're looking to close out.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you both. I really appreciate the time and so forth. And thank you to everyone that has tuned in to listen. And once again, I see folks commenting here on the StreamYard. I see folks commenting on Instagram. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day, out of your evening, depending on where you are, to tune in. William Jones, you can find me on various platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and so forth, under Afrofuturism Network, or under my name, William Jones. I also have a YouTube page that has old episodes of my radio show, Into the Afroverse, which is on the YouTube page, Afrofuturism Network. and we're trying to keep the show on air. Try to keep that radio show on the air. So please, if you go to AfroFuturismNet.com, you can see how you can support us. If you have a business you'd like to sponsor us, go fill out the page. If you just want to donate some money to keep us on air, you can do that. And I'm inviting anyone and everyone that'll be in Washington, D.C. on April 30th of this month, where I am hosting another evening with Afrofuturists at the Bronze Restaurant on H Street. H is in Harry. AfroFuturismNet.com. Okay. I'm actually going to have Yatasha Womack will be my special guest at Bronze Restaurant on April 30th, which is a Tuesday, Bronze Restaurant. So make sure you come out. And if you're in DC area, come on out, meet her. She's phenomenal. If you know anything about Afrofuturism, I'm sure you know her name. And once again, thank you so much. Buy my book on Amazon. Ex-con, Voodoo Priest, Goddess and the African King. I don't know what else to say, brother, but thank you so much for allowing me to share this space with you this evening.
All right. Nah, man. Thank you for coming on, man. Thank you, man. We definitely a blessing, man. And hey, brother, you've been doing the work, man. So we like to feature the individuals who have been doing the work and continuing to do the work to not only empower themselves, but also empower the community around them. I know this is a thankless job a lot of the time, but I do believe that the community needs this, and this is highly sought after. So definitely thank you once again. Thank you once again for your time, energy, your spirit to be able to help empower our community and our next generation of creators and innovators within this particular industry. Delonte, you want to kind of tap in on some closing remarks and everything before we get out of here?
Well, we thank the love and the support of the people, and we'll continue doing that. We thank you, brother, for sharing your time when you didn't have to.
Yeah, man.
And it's always a blessing to vibe off each other, and share jewels with each other and the people. Thank everybody for tuning in. Make sure you continue to tune in and tell other people about the podcast.
Oh yeah, man. Definitely. So thank you, man. Once again, this is Nasi Gifted and
Delonte J. Bass.
And we are The Future is Black. The Future is Black podcast, man. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for being here. And with that, I'm gonna comment. So here we go. And with that, we're gonna close out, man. We, there's been a lot, and we got a whole lot of stuff that's coming up season 2, man. So season 2, we're going to be talking about the pioneers and everything of Afrofuturism. So we're going to be looking forward to having William again, sometime on season 2, with regards to that. And then we're going to be taping live, man. We're going to be taping live from the Black Innovation Center in Miami the week of the 21st through the 28th. So we're gonna be taping live from there, and then we're gonna be doing a number of other things. So thank you guys again. Thank you all for your support, man. But definitely we need you to do a couple of things. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching the Future's Black podcast, and we're going to be tuning out, man. So thank you again, and this is it, man.
All right, brothers, take care.
All right, peace.
Each and every Thursday. Forgot to say peace. Peace, everybody. Peace. And good night.